All right, so let's get started with our discussion this morning. Again, panelists, thank you and welcome. To start off, I think, we're all pretty familiar with your school districts. Most of us live probably within some of your school districts or, near them. And so we have some background understanding, but if you could, please share some highlights about what's happening within your schools. Are there any successes, new projects, overall updates that you'd like to share to kick off our discussion? And there is a mic right there by you, Dr. Miller, if you want to unpause that and pass it down. You can start, yeah.
Okay. Kevin Miller, Licking High Schools. So lots of great things happening at Licking High Schools. I started 4 years ago. We had about 4,800 students. Right at 4,800 students, we'll top 5,500 students this year. So we continue to grow. On our most recent district report card issued by this state, we had 4 stars, which means that we are exceeding state expectations or standards. But one thing I want to point out that I'm really proud of is in the progress measure, which measures academic growth of our students. We received 5 stars, but importantly, Licking Heights had the second highest rate of academic growth in the state for the second year in a row. So out of 609 school districts, second highest rate of moving our students forward academically. And I'm really, really proud of that. As far as a couple of really great projects I'd like to tell you about, I was really working on building STEM opportunities for our students, really K through 12. And at some of our buildings, most of our buildings, what we're doing is developing 1 to 3 acre outdoor labs. And we're partnering with the Licking County Pollinators Pathways and their Meadows for Monarchs program. And so this fall, our students will be planting donated native seeds in those areas as we kick that off. And we're also partnering with Denison University and OSU Newark as those become research sites for them. So that's a really exciting thing. At the high school level, about a year ago, we received a $2.2 million Career Tech Equipment Grant from the state of Ohio, and that's focused on helping us develop additional pathways for our students. So we are off and running with that. We've done some renovating in our high school to create spaces for our students to implement these programs. So we're focusing on logistics and supply chain management, cybersecurity, software program development, and arts and visual design. So really great partnership with the state on that.
Yeah, I'm Gisele James, Superintendent at Parks and STEM Academy, and have a lot of great things that happened. In 24, we were the #1 school globally for math and reading for the Success for All program. In 25, we got the designation officially from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Development to be a STEM school. We're the only one in Licking County and the only K-6 community school in the state of Ohio to receive that designation. So we're very proud of that. We have a huge focus right now on expansion. Our enrollment has gone up significantly, and we're having some growing pains right now. So we're looking to expand from 7 to 12, and that will happen as soon as we can get a building. So expansion is really the first thing on our mind. We also have about 150 partners through the STEM program who are partnering with us to bring more curriculum under STEM. And we've had such a wonderful response from the business community at around Park who are really wanting to help us expand our STEM focus. We also have a pollinator program that's happening, and we have a garden that we're expanding, and just quite a few things going on. But we are very excited about not only just our academic achievements, but also the community support with our growth and expansion.
Hi, everyone. Tom Pickering, principal at North Catholic. This is going into year 5 for me as the principal, and a lot of great things going on here at North Catholic High School. Our enrollment is up 10% at this point. And projections are looking very strong in the foreseeable future as we continue to grow and look at many of our feeder schools, St. Francis, Blessed Sacrament, and St. Vincent. We reaffirmed our mission this year, which is on our 3 pillars of faith, knowledge, and service. And in the accreditation process with the state of Ohio, we we found that there was a need through stakeholder surveys and whatnot to really focus on empathy and critical thinking skills with our kids. So that's been a big focus on us for the future and through this 5-year cycle in the state accreditation process. And part of that, part of the vehicle that we've established here is establishing a house system. Kind of think in terms of maybe Harry Potter type stuff. But we're focusing on the service aspect. So we're calling it our houses of service, and we're setting it up in multi-level grades. So freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors are all together in a house system. So we're building a culture that is very welcoming for these kids and giving them opportunities to get to know upperclassmen that they may not get to know unless they were on a sports team with them or something like that. And we're only a few months in, but we've seen, great strides with this system. And I'm really excited to see the focus again with the critical thinking skills is to make this student driven. So we want our kids to really, understand community outreach and building relationships here within Licking County. Looking forward to just kind of seeing where that growth continues to go and how we can establish partnerships here within the local community here. But yeah, many great things going on at North Catholic, but that's a real big highlight for this year.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Lewis, Superintendent at Newark City Schools. And what am I in? I'm in year 6. I'm in year 6 at Newark City Schools. So a lot of good things happening at Newark City Schools. And we too are also piloting a house system. We are in year 2 at 2 of our elementary schools with the house system, Cherry Valley and Carson Elementary. And we're in year 1 at Heritage Middle School. And you already talked about, what that's for, developing that culture. I will say that we have seen improvements with discipline referrals for students. We have seen better attendance at the elementary level. So, it's really, focusing on that sense of community for our students. A lot of our students do not get that at home. But other things that we have going on this year, we have a lot because, we're continuing to try to make our district the best it can be. We're not satisfied with our report card. There's a lot of initiatives that we've taken on the last couple years, and we're hopeful that next year we start to see us making up some of that ground. But just some of the other things that we're doing, we started a freshman academy at the high school, basically using the top floor and putting the freshmen upstairs for their core classes, so that they can have a better transition to high school rather than just throwing them in there and say, good luck. They still, go to the cafeteria and eat with the other grade levels. They do travel for their elective courses, but just being able to isolate them and bring them into the high school environment slowly, that's been an excellent start for them. Also, we started the Newark Alternative Academy this year, using some space at the State Farm building that we purchased a few years ago. Right now, we have approximately 80 students there, and these are some of our most at-risk students that are credit deficient. The high school environment just does not work for them because of discipline, because of attendance, because of credit deficiencies. And that's been the best thing that we've done since I've been here. It's going so well. We have 5 or 6 staff members out there. We have a morning session, we have an afternoon session, and we're really teaming that up with our workforce development program. So, these are students that would be at risk of not graduating and know what they're going to do when they graduate. So really trying to make them career ready and to get their diplomas and to have that pathway. Elementary school, like I said, the house system pilot, also piloting a new math program, K through 5, which was a long time coming. Departmentalization in grades 4 and 5. That's something that we wanted to work towards to help transition students to 6th grade and the middle school level. Balance the workforce development. Also, our communication and marketing efforts. I'm probably the only district up here that can say we're losing students. I think we're at maybe 5,900. I think prior to COVID, we were at 6,500. Students and families have a lot of options, and we need to make sure we're marketing our district and communicating and let everybody know all the great things that we're doing as a district because we have so many opportunities for our students and families. So that's another thing that we're really ramping up is trying to market our district in a positive way. So.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Hey, thanks.
I'm Scott Beery. I'm in my 4th year as a superintendent at Licking Valley. I'm a product of teaching and coaching in Newark City, and then went to Licking Valley as a building administrator. And then the board was foolish enough to hire me as a superintendent. I'll probably regret that sometimes, but we're in year 2 of the full implementation of a strategic plan that we went through in my 2nd year. Listened to all the voices. We are about 2,200 students. We've stayed steady at 2,200. We haven't grown quite as fast as everybody anticipated. But if you go out the parking lot, turn left and drive through picturesque Marne and Hanover, you're gonna see a lot of light blue pipes. That's what's gonna drive. It's not gonna be Intel or Western Licking County expansion that's gonna drive our growth. It's gonna be water. Follow water, sewer, and zoning, and you'll find growth. And we're on the cusp of that. It has been a little slower than we anticipated, but we wanted to get ahead of that. In all those voices in our strategic plan, the most important voice, and I'm sure everybody up here would agree, is our students' voice. And some of the exciting things that they told us was things like College Credit Plus. We don't have as many kids that participated in that 2 years ago that so we talked to them, we said, why not? And they didn't want to leave. They want those opportunities, but they want to enjoy the school experience within the building. And so we've invested a couple of $100,000 the last year and just completed it and renovated some rooms and actually completely modified our media center so that we are teaching those classes on campus. We still have some students that go out. One of the things that we'll talk about, I'm sure later, is the budget and kind of the legislators' view of public schools right now. And some of that is we got beat up on the cash balances and saving for a rainy day. Well, we should be saving for a rainy day, but we've also invested a lot of that money back into our students. We just expanded our SRO program, hired another SRO. We also are in the midst of completely renovating all of our sports complexes. Our high school auditorium, our band and choir program and drama program are just blowing up. Great problem, but we needed to invest money so that they could perform in the absolute best facilities we could afford. We're doing the same thing at our elementary. So we're putting that money back into where our students and our parents and our community wanted us to. Another hallmark of that is communications. Even in small rural Licking Valley, it's hard to communicate, right? You don't pick up the Advocate. People that don't have kids in our school, they told us, like, we don't know everything that's going on in schools. They don't get our messaging that goes out. If they don't have children, they're not picking up, a newspaper. They're not logging into our website. So we've done some stuff with that, really got out and about and done that. The safety piece, but then also keeping an eye on the growth. So we're about ready to embark on the master's facility plan on some renovations, but also some building. But again, everything that we do is all about the entire student experience. One of the things I'm most proud of, if you've been in Licking County for a long time, I was here as the head football coach when we went to pay to play, and it always bothered me. And I can't right every wrong that's ever taken place in this world, but one of the things that we did last year, and we've continued it, we pick up the cost of all student participation. So when our students, now, if you've ever been to a football game at Licking Valley, this won't shock you. 80% of our students are there. Nothing costs them anything. We cover the entire cost of all of that. Now it comes with some headaches, I may be standing down there and, somebody did something stupid, maybe they would have stayed home if I didn't pay for them, but that's okay. We're getting ready to play Granville. Jeff Brown and I worry about those kind of things this Friday, so, those are good problems, right? Those are
That's right.
2025 problems, but again, we're always going to, at Licking Valley, invest money back into our students. We picked up the cost of all AP testing and coursework. We want more of our students to participate in that, and we want to take away that burden of cost. So we're really proud of what's going on. We really are proud of the product that we produce, and our kids are proud to be there. So thank you.
Kasey Perkins, a superintendent from Southwest Licking. And very similar to my neighbor on down the table, we are sharing a lot of similarities with Licking Heights. We are a rapidly growing community. I currently have 28 housing developments in various stages. So I like to say business is booming. And as Mr. Beery said, we do have the sewer and water and infrastructure. So they are coming to Pataskala and they're coming rapidly. So we currently have 5,100 students each year. That is increasing steadily. We were 4 stars on the report card. So super proud of the work of our students and our staff. But more importantly, that is, one moment in time and captures one piece of the school district. I'm super proud that we opened our own special needs school this year. The Pataskala Bridge Academy. It services K through 5 autism, as well as 4 through 12 ED students. We are able to also offer seats to our other school districts in similar communities or that need help for their students as well. We had the first ever permanent structure safety town that opened last summer for K through 2 students. We modeled that after our downtown businesses. So we're using that for also additional opportunities besides just safety throughout the summer and fire and all that good stuff. We are doing something for Halloween, around the holidays, and also in the spring. So something really fun for our kids. Our agriculture program is growing. We have 2 greenhouses and an outdoor food forest. This year alone, in the first 8 weeks of school, they have given over 250 pounds of fruits and vegetables to supplement our kitchens and for our kids to have. And then the next step is going to be to help support the food needy within our community as they grow. So again, extremely proud of that program. We have all of our buildings are new and or renovated as of this fall. And we are back on the ballot in November for another middle school and an expansion on our high school that is only 5 years old. So unfortunately, the growth is coming more rapid than originally predicted. We were initially for our previous buildings, we were an OFCC co-funded state project. And so they do our growth analysis. And we have found that we have surpassed by 420 students where they predicted we'd be in 5 years. So that growth was inaccurate. We are now partnering with a company that has given us accurate growth the last 5 years within a 99% accuracy. So we feel confident in what we need in our district. And obviously it's a trying time for our community and for taxes. And so we understand that. But the needs for kids are not going away. And I have 3 buildings that are already at capacity. So that is probably proud of our new buildings, but also still need more. So with that being said.
All right, well, thank you all for the updates, and I just have to say, you just sent me on a path down memory lane because you mentioned Safety Town. And I didn't know that was even still a thing, but I remember going to Safety Town 30-some years ago before I started kindergarten. So that's a funny memory, but yeah, that's very exciting updates from all of you. Just a note to our audience, there are slips of paper on your tables where if you have questions throughout the conversation, you're welcome to write those. We will try our best to take as many questions from you all at the end as we can, of course, time permitting. So anything that you think of, please feel free to write it on those slips of paper that say questions for the speaker, and we will collect those near the end. So panelists, thank you all for the information and the introductions that you provided. Over the last few years, the world has changed quite a bit and seems to continue to change day by day. Over the last few years, what kinds of changes have you experienced in the world of education, maybe specifically within your district or within the wider educational world? Whether that's specific to something or just in general. I know that's a big question, so. Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. So a couple changes that I've noticed in the world, as well as this is my 15th year in the district, 7th as superintendent. Technology has expanded learning opportunities immensely over the last 5 years to even last decade. They've offered a lot of amazing things for kids, but with amazing things sometimes comes some headaches and some hiccups along the way as well, because our kids are so heavily reliant now on that technology that has also created, along the way some issues for teachers, but for the most part, I would say that's positive. We have seen also a greater focus on social and emotional learning and mental health. That has been something that has rapidly changed over the last 5 years. We're seeing an increase in, kids needing those additional supports, having a higher need for more social workers and guidance counselors to really support them. And not just at school, but in that, family connection as well, what's going on at home, what's, coming into school. And that's been something that's been, challenging and that we've heavily, and I'm sure everyone at this table is gonna say, have focused on. Specifically for my district, again, it would be just the rapid growth. That is something that people would ask, when Intel was coming, are you worried about growth? And I would say the growth is already here. The growth is in my district, it's coming, it's nothing to do with Intel. That's just compounding things. So I would say, yeah.
Intel's still coming?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's all right. All right.
Those would be the big things that I would say.
I'll echo Kasey. It is, and before we started, we can get caught up in mired in the muck of our jobs sometimes. And it is, people demand more of schools than they've ever demanded. And I don't think that, we're never going back the other way. And that can be overwhelming, but I think the beautiful thing about that is, and when we bring in new teachers, and we bring in new staff, the role of education has never been more important. Because more and more of our kids depend on schools to get a lot of the things that they need that maybe I got at home growing up or you got at home. And to me, that's challenging when you sit in our seats, but I also think it's refreshing that, and I think it's true for everybody, but in small town USA, in picturesque Hanover, they're still gonna come to the school. And part of that's because they trust us. Now, unfortunately, sometimes that's because they trust us, right? And again, that's an unbelievable burden on schools, especially with some of the funding things that we may see on the horizon. But I also think as a career public educator, that I'm not going to tell you how many years, but it's a lot. I think it's wonderful because our power of influence has never been greater. And I think that's really important for us to understand. I think about United Way, right? The demands on United Way have never been greater. But thank goodness that we have organizations like United Way that step into the void and fill that gap and make a difference in this world. Because that's really what we're all called to do. It doesn't matter if you're in the role of superintendent. And I will tell you, when you said safety town, just on a light note, safety town and field trips. Somebody asked me, how do you get through some of the crazy things that you deal with? I spent last week on Tuesday and Thursday with our kindergartners at the Wilds.
Oh, wow.
And I quickly realized I've been semi-retired for a long time. Kindergarten teachers work now. But that's how, right, the rule of going on a field trip with a bunch of 5-year-olds, the rule of safety town and teaching students real life skills that protect them. Nobody will ever step in and fill that void like schools do. And I think we're blessed for that. We get mired in the muck sometimes, but I think we've seen that change. That it just keeps getting more and more and more. Where does it stop? I have no idea.
Yeah, what changes haven't we seen, in the last few years in education? And, we all watch the news. We're all on social media. Society is different. Schools are different. The political landscape is different. The world's a different place, and you hate to keep saying COVID, but I mean, the world has changed dramatically since COVID. And, our staff has handled things like champs. Like Scott said, I echo a lot of his comments there that, a lot is asked of our schools. And, specifically, the mental health issues that we have in schools are through the roof. We can't have enough people in our schools that are able to, sit down and work with our students. Every day, I sign off on every piece of paper that comes across my desk. Students that are abused or neglected, or that are filled out by principals or teachers, and reading some of that stuff, it's just chilling. It's just bone chilling. And so our students are experiencing a lot of stuff, outside of school. Sky did a great job of spinning it into positive. A lot of things are positive since, COVID. I think it's really brought us together. It made us a little bit more flexible, allowed us to think outside the box. But I am worried about education in the future and can we find teachers? There's a decrease in the number of people going into education-related fields. Things like that kind of keep me up at night. And, we can sit here and argue about the political landscape and society up and down, but how that impacts, schools and other, government entities and public institutions, it's real. And, people have handled it extremely well, but, there are a lot of things that we do worry about in the future. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all gonna probably say a lot of similar things because we're all seeing the same issues that are present in every single school and in every single community. Part of the needs that we've seen at Newark Catholic, again, is the mental health needs was a big one. So we have a school-based clinical counselor that is on site with us 3 days a week and then as needed. And we've seen, great growth out of that, for many, many years, that was kind of a stigma. And I think that, being able to acknowledge that this is a different world that we live in compared to maybe what we grew up in is very important to see that. And we have many students that utilize that, and that has been a great opportunity of growth here at Newark Catholic High School. Along with the COVID piece and thinking outside the box, Newark Catholic has significantly expanded their CCP options, College Credit Plus. When I came in 5 years ago, we were only offering about 2 opportunities to our students. We have significantly expanded that, almost to the extent of what is being able to be offered at the public school level. So that has been very big. And, in terms of safety, that's a huge topic, obviously, right now, with the landscape of the world today. When I first took over 5 years ago, we did a safety assessment, and we just had some vulnerabilities that just needed to be addressed. And, we were thankful to get some state granting opportunities that allowed us to upgrade our PA system, as well as, just address some exterior vulnerabilities, rekeying all of our doors and going to a FOP system to be able to ensure that we know who is in the building at all times, updating cameras and, having, just security, all throughout the building. And we're in the process of taking a very serious look at a school safety officer for the first time. Just addressing the needs as they come. But yeah, we're definitely feeling the same thing that all of these school districts are.
There's a lot of the changes that you've mentioned. The mental health challenge I see is probably one of the larger ones. The social emotional aspect of what students bring to the classroom now has really grown. I've seen more students with anxiety than I have ever seen before. Autism is also, I've seen more students with autism and parents who are wanting that identified and want to talk about it. And we also have a counselor on site, which is our first year for having a a counselor on site all day for 2 days a week. And families are actually coming to the school and requesting counseling. And that's a good thing, but at the same time, it's just more work that that is built into the system of education. Now is kind of, we have to wear many more hats than we ever thought we had to do. Family counseling, drug and alcohol addiction, I've noticed, is up in this Licking County. There's also a housing shortage. Our homeless population, which we have the largest homeless population, has grown significantly. Housing costs are up. And I know we're building a lot of homes, but not affordable housing for everybody. And we have to really keep that in mind, that as we are bringing businesses into Licking County and they're providing good jobs, there's still a certain, part of the community who is not, that's not accessible to them. And we have to remove some barriers and some bridges. And we are also offering a STEM employment thing at par for, to have people come in and learn about all the STEM jobs that are available in this community, because STEM is the future and it's growing, and we want to make that more accessible to our families so that they can have a living wage, a wage where they can actually be able to, feed their family and get housing. So I see that as a need in this community and in our district that has grown. Security, we have a full-time security officer on staff, and he finds himself now doing a lot of making sure that the homeless families are getting the things they need, making sure that there is a safety involved with how people even externally enter the building, and those things we're more concerned now with safety than ever. And I think that goes back to the mental health aspect that we're all experiencing in our community. I've seen social media going in some ways that I do not like to see with our young people, the anxiety around trying to keep up with the next best, greatest thing is something we need to address as a community. How it's influencing our young people at such a young age, and their access to social media and their access to some of the things that are on the internet. If they know more than you do, it's a problem. It's a problem. If your 5-year-old can get on your phone, and we need to start, because these students who are entering in our school in kindergarten will never have life without a cell phone. They don't even know, when you show them a picture of a phone, and we're looking at some old worksheets, they thought it was a clock. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting old. So we need to be aware of what's happening, and need to be plugged into it. And that's also cybersecurity. We've hired a person who, one of their focuses is cybersecurity, because we're realizing that our students outside people have access to our students and our children through their phones, and because some students come to school with kindergarten with phones. Now, I don't understand that, but they do, and they're very serious about keeping their safety. They feel safe with their phones, but I think at the same time, we're building safety to have those. We also have to be aware of other things they're accessing. So we have to really look at those things with security and technology as it grows. There's a weight that comes with that we have to be aware of. Families, keeping families together, family counseling things, keeping a lot of family engagement activities. We are very focused on that in marketing, and making sure that we do things that serve the entire family, not just one student. So those are some changes that are happening, and especially with the students that I see. So, we have some work to do. And we're going to do it.
Our kids will never know what a party line is, will they?
They will not.
My dad always told my brother and I that he couldn't date anyone who was a long distance phone call. So with the growth that we talk about, also just the increase in diversity in our communities, at Licking Heights, almost 1 out of 5 kids K through 12 comes from a non-English speaking home. If you just look at K through 3, that's almost 1 out of 3 students. So certainly that challenge, and Deb talked about kindergarten readiness, is so important, and helping support those families to understand, how do you help your child be ready to come to kindergarten? What skills does your child need to come to kindergarten? And it's a little bit of a push and pull, because the Nepalese community is the largest community in our school district, and they want their kids to know how to speak Nepalese, and certainly we honor that. But a lot of times they're coming to kindergarten and they can speak Nepalese, but they don't speak a word of English. So we're just trying to get some tools into their hands and provide some programming for them. I mean, things as simple as the Dolly Parton, Imagination Library, so that they have English books in their homes. So just working on that, and then just honoring their culture, honoring what is special and important to them and where they come from. At the same time, helping them understand what American education looks like, because it looks different from the education that they experienced in their countries. Again, for our Nepalese community, many of the parents and grandparents spent 17, 18, 19, 20 years in immigration camps in Nepal. So they didn't even have formal education. So we realized that 3 out of 5 of our Nepalese parents can speak Nepalese, they can't read Nepalese. So once we realized that, we record a lot of our messages going out and they click on the QR code so that they can hear that recording. But just again, trying to assimilate them to American education while still helping honor who they are and where they come from. So we do things like, for example, on Friday, we had a professional development day, which was solely focused on safety and security issues. But the reason we did that Friday was because it's an important religious observation day for our Nepalese community. So we try to fashion our calendar in such a way that it doesn't just honor, the traditional holidays that we've all been used to in religious observations, but those that are important to our multicultural families. That's a big piece of that. And along with that, the helping them understand how to speak and read English. The science of reading has been a big change for us the last couple of years. It's a state mandated approach to teaching reading, and it's focused, in its simplest sense, is focused very much on phonics as an important part of the reading process. I think that's been a positive thing for us, especially with many of our non-English kids coming in. It's a good place to start. But that's something that's taken a lot of time and attention. We talked about CCP, College Credit Plus, and we're seeing a change because College Credit Plus was started initially to focus on economically disadvantaged families and families who trying to give their kids access to college as really first-time college generation within their multiple generations. Now it's open to really all students. And there's been a lot of time, attention, and money poured into CCP over the last, I'm gonna say 15 plus years. And we kind of kept raising our hand to legislators saying, college is not the only successful pathway for a student. You will be surprised that they didn't listen to us. But now that Intel and many of the other industries have come in and they need skilled trades, right? And finally, legislators are understanding the importance of that. And that's why I spoke about career pathways. And you heard that from the other school districts too, is that they're finally giving us the support and attention we need to create those career pathways that aren't necessarily culminating in college. And so I think that's been an important change over the last couple of years. And so, yeah, that and everything else that they said.
Thank you, everyone. As we could have already guessed before, but you have all been extremely busy, and I think just you have to be adaptable and roll with the punches, and it seems like you're all prime examples of that. So thanks for all of your answers. We're going to dig into a little maybe more difficult topic or more heavy topic to answer here. And I know that there are some differences with maybe the way that some of your schools are receiving funding just due to differences in your districts, but the topic of funding for both federal and state sources has been a big conversation, not just for our school systems, but for many of us in this room working in public or nonprofit sectors. With the new state budget and the recent news, I think just last week, of the Ohio legislature's elimination of replacement and emergency levies, what impact are you anticipating on your district's funding? Is there anything that you'd like the public to know about school funding? Again, I know that's a big question, so
There's a lot.
Yeah. Go for it, Kevin.
We got a couple hours.
Yeah.
This statistic, in 1999, the state shared 47% of the cost of public education in Ohio. This year, it's 38%. By the end of this budget bill, in 2 years, it will be 32%, an historical low. So if I had to sum it up in a singular sentence, it would be this: legislators are abandoning their constitutional responsibility to fund Ohio's public schools. And we're talking about property taxes and the need to reform property taxes. And I'm telling you, as a superintendent, the others would say the same, our treasurers would say the same. We understand that, and there is a need for that. But it is a need that has been caused by our legislators. And they've turned a blind eye to addressing it. And now that's why everybody's running scared that there will be an amendment on the ballot to do away with property taxes in the state of Ohio. Many people applaud that. And my question is, well, then how are we going to fund our schools, our libraries, our services to our families, and everything else under the sun? Because at some point, if we want to be the state we would want Ohio to be, we all have to share in really the financial responsibility to make great things happen in our schools, in our communities, to serve those families who need support, right? And so I'm going to take a deep breath.
Can we just let Kevin handle this question? There's a lot of pent up frustration with him. Let's just let him handle this for everybody.
You have to understand that before I came to Licking Heights, I've been in education 43 years. I was superintendent at Ottawa Hill Schools up in Toledo. And we moved down to Columbus because I became the Director of Governmental Relations for BASA, which is our state superintendent organization. So I spent 3 years really at the State House working with legislators, understanding how the system works, understanding the incredible dysfunction of the system, but having a better understanding of how state law and state policy is developed, much to the detriment of the citizens of Ohio. But I'll just provide one example for you of where our lawmakers are saying we're doing this so that we can reform property taxes and to help you with your property taxes. So as was noted, it was put in the budget that certain levies would no longer be allowed, one of them being a substitute levy. The governor vetoed that element of the budget, and we were thankful for that, but then the House and Senate have overridden it, so we cannot use the substitute levy. And let me tell you why that's important. These conversations can be really complicated. We try to, keep it as simple as possible for people to grasp, but before me, when Phil Wagner was the superintendent there, the Licking Heights had two emergency levies. An emergency levy is kind of a fixed sum levy that says, hey, if we're going to keep offering programs, we need this level of money in order to continue those programs. So what the treasurer and Phil did back in, I think around, well, it was 2019, I know that, they put those two levies into one substitute levy. So if that substitute levy substituted those two emergency levies. So no additional taxes for the people of Licking Heights. It was just kind of bringing them together, making it a bit simpler for everybody to understand. So that was a 10-year substitute levy that was passed in 2019. So it would be up for renewal in 2029. Now we cannot put that up for renewal. The loss of that substitute levy would mean about an $11.5 million annual loss for Licking Heights schools. That would be about 125 to 150 positions that we would have to cut. Now, certainly, we'll work on that to do something different, but what's going to happen is we're going to have to put up just a regular operating levy, okay? Those are still a part of Ohio. Here's the problem. Under the substitute levy, our taxpayers realized two credits from the state of Ohio. They realized the rollback exemption and the homestead exemption. So those credits, those exemptions are basically Ohio who said, listen, taxpayers, you pay taxes to the state of Ohio. We want that to come back to you in the way of support. If you are a homeowner, we want to support you. So we're actually going to reduce your tax burden with these credits, all right? Those credits existed till 2013 when legislators took them out of law. So they no longer exist unless they're on previous levies that were in existence in 2013. Now you say, well, you passed that levy in 2019. Right, it wasn't a new levy, it was a substitute or replacement levy, so the tax credits lived on. So when we can no longer have that substitute levy in 2029, and we have to put a new levy up, the tax credits will no longer exist. So out of that $11.5 million that we were getting from that levy, 1.1 million was coming from the state. It was our taxpayers' money coming back to them. The credits won't exist anymore. So now, who has to bear the burden of that $1.1 million? The local property owners. So, did that reform property tax at all? No. As a matter of fact, it will increase the burden on our property tax, our property owners, and it decreases the burden on the state. That's how we're getting down to a 32% share. Okay, so that's just an example of the non-action at the State House to truly address property taxes. In its simplest sense, many people talk about a circuit breaker. And in my mind, this makes sense that your property tax increase can only increase to an amount that's kind of relevant to your income, right? So if you are a senior citizen, if you're on a fixed income, if you have a certain income level, you're protected by, 45% increases in your property value because there's an understanding that you cannot bear the cost of that increase. Others can, but you can't. So legislators have been arguing over the last couple of years on how to fix property taxes. They haven't done anything.
Right.
And now comes the amendment, and now they're just throwing a whole bunch of things up on the wall without really considering the impact of it. For the sake of saying, we're protecting our taxpayers in Ohio. They're not. They continue to push things onto taxpayers of Ohio, especially property owners. So that's just an example of many of what's happening at the State House to the detriment, I think, of the state of Ohio, but to the benefit of legislators who have something to talk about the next time they run for election. That's an opinion. Okay, watch. It's not a fact, that's an opinion.
I think next question,
next
I
question.
think, I could be a disservice. Yeah.
And keep in mind that as our funding goes down in schools, the level of anxiety and some mental health issues and all the things that we have fought for so long to provide for students go down, and what we can do to provide those services go down. So when I had a budget, $100,000 that was cut off of my after-school budget, which was cut it in half, that means I can't hire as many people, as many students can't participate. What we make available to them at the end of, what he's saying, and I don't know all the specifics because he's great with actually knowing what's happening with legislation. I can tell you, if we're not aware and we don't get woke about what's really going on, then it's going to hit us individually because our students are our future. And no matter how you slice it, they're 40% of our population and 100% of our future, and it's everybody's future.
Right.
So what he's saying is extremely important to be woke and aware of, so that we can keep education where it needs to be, and that's a priority over a lot of other things that I hear discussed that to me may not be as important, but that's life in our life too. Because all of us will be getting older, some of us are getting older a lot faster. And somebody will need people to take care of us, we'll need jobs, like he said, not every job you have to go to college, and we want, there's all kinds of jobs. In the future, actually, with STEM is they take you before you get to college because they need the skills that you already are accumulating. So remember that as funding goes down, a lot of the social, emotional issues will go up.
In terms of school funding, at North Catholic High School, Ohio Ed Choice has been a big game changer for North Catholic. as with many private institutions. And, I think that we have kept a very conservative approach ultimately with this, whether it's consulting with our finance board and whatnot, on how this will play out, because quite frankly, it's a school choice is a political issue. And so we can't look at this as this is going to be around forever, or, as you've seen, as this has evolved the last couple of years, there's constantly tweaks and changes. So we can't develop our business model on the whims of the legislature, very similar to the frustrations that many of the public school districts are having. So, we've got a board that is working with strategic planning on, if and when the policy changes. And, on top of that, I'm thankful for the many generations that came before me at Newark Catholic High School, that, the goal was established all the way back in 1984 to preserve Catholic education in Licking County. And we have had a foundation board that has been established since 1984. So being able to have that gives me the sense of relief, knowing that despite what's going on in the legislature and all of those different things, we've got a governing board behind us that is looking for sustainment for years to come.
There's nothing I can add that's gonna be any different from what was already stated, but yeah, it impacts all of us. We appreciate the support we get from our community and our taxpayers. We're all taxpayers, we get it, we wanna pay less as well, but instead of, trying to work on, let's work on funding schools rather than all of this tax relief, let's have that, planned before we can move forward with tax relief. But there's nothing I can add that's gonna be any different from what Kevin said, so.
I don't want.
You want it?
Next
Okay, yeah, next question.
All right, thank you so much. Lots of information, and certainly appreciate all of your perspectives and your passion about this subject, so thank you. Similarly, and again, if someone has a lot of the information, feel free to share. There have been a lot of legislative changes that impact how schools need to function. Examples are House Bill 8, Senate Bill 104. I believe in the Ohio Revised Code, it made changes to student cell phone use. There have been changes to educational methodology and even changes to how schools use competitive bidding for building or demolition projects. How have these legislative changes or others made a significant impact in your district's day-to-day operations, and how are you navigating that?
I'll speak to one and then pass it on, because we're all impacted by everything that you mentioned. The release for religious instruction is something that has been a hot topic. And no matter where you stand politically, philosophically, we need to leave that luggage at the door, and we need to do what is best for our students. And, sometimes we're mandated to do things that maybe we don't think we should have to do in public education. But like was stated earlier, we wear many, many hats, and we're responsible to do much more, as the years go on. So, all I will say is that we do have a good relationship with the folks at LifeWise. It's going pretty well. I sent out a questionnaire to my principals, about, hey, what's happening that we need to maybe discuss and meet with them about, and they were all pretty minor. But I will say, it does impact us, it does put a burden on employees in our schools as far as, providing lunches for those students, to have if they forget to take their lunch with them. For secretaries to make sure that all the students that are supposed to go are going. So, there has been a lot of discussion. Oh, it's no burden on the schools. Well, it is. There has to, we have to have folks that help out in those areas, but it has gone pretty well so far. But that's just one thing that that has impacted us that I wanted to speak on.
Thank you, Dave. Likewise is in the third year at Licking Valley, probably not shocking, thriving. We've adapted, we do what we've got to do, and they do what they got to do. And to be honest with you, I think by last count, per capita, it's the most heavily attended LifeWise chapter in the state. And again, I can tell you, a church I attend in Newark is sponsoring one of the ones for Newark City. So we deal with it. It's okay. They're not missing an academic course, and there's mountains you die on, and there's fights you fight, and then there's fights you just make work for your people. That we are a public school, and so we are answerable to our public. The student cell phone ban may be one of the greatest pieces of legislation. We can dump on politicians a lot in this field. It's been great. To be honest with you, I did a board report about a week ago. Between our middle school and high school, we had 6 incidences of violation through the first 6 weeks of school. In the past, we would have 6 violations when I was a building principal, sometimes 6 a day. It's taken away some of that stress that we talk about, social media and what have you. Our kids have adapted to it completely. Are they crazy about it? Would they like to have them at lunch and stuff? No. Do I still think sometimes they sneak off to the bathroom and probably beat the system? Yeah, so do some of the adults. Sadly, I do. I have no tolerance for adults breaking student, come on, right? If there's an emergency, we deal with the emergency, and we do the same thing with our students. But that has been great. The science of reading that I think Kevin addressed earlier, or somebody addressed earlier, has been great for us. I inherited the district where we really didn't have a defined literacy program, and now we do. And we knew that was a fix that we had to make, and so it timed out perfectly. And our K-5 teachers have been great. All of our staff being trained in the basics have been great. We used some PD days. We converted some. Student attendance days. You want to become popular as a superintendent, change the 3 days before Christmas break to PD days. Like that, you get some street cred when you do that. So those things have been great. So there are great things, and we do work hand in hand with our legislators and with some of the recent legislators. Representative Kevin Miller is in our district, and he's in my office the next day. We don't agree on everything. I mean, he has his job, we have our job, but we have conversations, and I'm not even gonna go near Kevin on that because he's the expert. But this is what I would say is I think everybody up here probably would agree. This is my sermon that I preach in our district. Look, I pay property taxes just like you do. And I've grown accustomed to a lot of the services. Like, I really like schools. I really like police and fire. I really like nice roads and bridges. And that comes at a cost. There is common sense fixes where you put inflationary caps here and there, and you do things like circuit breakers and what have you to give people relief. Those are great, but to make this draconian move that would cost somebody like us, I'll brag about this. It's one of the things that we're proudest of. We have not been on the ballot for new money at Licking Valley for 33 years.
Wow.
33 years. Now, I inherited a really strong system. Like, I take no credit for that. It's my, I get some of the old timers will look at me and say, keep us off. Yes, sir. Right? And I get it. But I can tell you this, if some of these things happen, we'll be on in 18 months with a 0 chance of passing in Licking Valley.
Right.
Like, I mean, with the exception of the superintendent, our people love our district. They don't like me, but they love the district. But the point is, we lose 80-20 at the ballot box. And so those are the things that we have to really be conscious of. And but there has been some great things when you talk about cell phone bans and what have you that have really helped us lead in our positions, and our building principals lead in those positions and give us leverage to say, no, you don't need that. And the kids, honestly, they're fine. They'll be okay. We did. But you know what? I can tell you this, our kids will tell you, thank you. Like, you took one less burden off my plate. They didn't ask for it, but they figured that out.
That's good. To echo some of the sentiments that Scott just said, our union, teachers union president spoke at most recent board meeting and literally just explained the gratitude that the teachers have for the removal of the cell phones. And we don't have anecdotal data at this point to prove what the connection with no cell phones and discipline data, but our discipline data is way down. The amount of issues we're having at our secondary level, I mean, it's just crazy. It's hardly existing, which is awesome. And I think it's removed, the kids arranging their things through texting and all the posting on the social media and seeing those things. And so then teachers can teach, which is what they're supposed to be doing, what they want to do. And kids do want to learn. They want to learn, but unfortunately, these phones are their distractions. So if we have to give, credit in this one for something positive the legislators do, the cell phone policy was great. And as far as all the other, the policy changes, the release time for religious instruction, I think the key word you keep hearing is adaptability. So, it's surprises every year, it's adapting, it's, putting things in place in your district to make sure you're following the laws, that we're doing what's necessary. We have LifeWise as well, just in one of our schools at this time. It's going well, did we want to have it at first? No. But at the same time, it's not a problem, it's working and it's fine. And so it's just, doing what we have to do, realizing that there's so much flexibility and adaptability with this job. And you just have to be ready to roll with whatever comes your way next, whether that may be good or bad. And I think that's part of just being a school superintendent.
The biggest one that definitely resonates with me in this question is obviously the cell phone ban. Huge props to our legislatures for doing that. We addressed it. We're in year 4 of a cell phone policy actually at Newark Catholic High School. And we definitely saw that this is a weapon for kids. And so if you ever have an interest in it, I would suggest if you've ever heard of the book The Anxious Generation, it's I believe is it Stephen Haidt? Is that? Yeah, Haidt, or maybe it's Jonathan Haidt. We read that as a staff several years ago, and it just really talked about how at such a young age kids are being exposed to this digital media, and it's basically rewiring their brains. And that's when we first established the cell phone policy at Newark Catholic. Prior to that, the lunchroom was quiet. And that was hard to believe. Like, that told you the level of addiction that kids had to the cell phone. And since we have done it, we were one of the first ones through the door with the cell phone policy. So we had a lot of pushback. Parents were very worried. How am I supposed to reach out to my kid at every waking moment of the day? And it was like, well, when you were in school, we called the office and we went ahead and got the kid and addressed that. And it's taken a little bit of battle, but I think when the legislature came in, that gave us more ammo to really go after this. And I'm happy to say that we've got a very loud lunchroom. It irritates our teachers at times, but I'm always quick to remind them that this is the way that it should be. This is the opportunity for them to let loose, and then you don't have to have a lot of the distractions that you're dealing with throughout the day.
I'm really shocked about the cell phone policy, because I've had that policy since I've been a leader at PAR, that you can't have your cell phone at school. So I'm glad that somebody recognized that they don't need them, because they really don't. So it makes me very happy about that. But at our school, that's something that we've just always had. They're K-6. I mean, what do you need to be talking to somebody every day about? And when we do, if somebody has them out, I normally take them and see what they're talking about. They don't like that, because I get really nothing. But it also keeps them from pulling them out. Another thing that some things have changed about the science of reading, and I will proudly say that PAR was the pilot school for the state of Ohio for the science of reading. We've had our heart invested in dyslexia and identifying it for many years. So I was at one time on the co-vider board and pushed very heavily for that to be recognized. And when it came to fruition, I was very pleased. I know that a lot of people struggle with getting their teachers trained, but we were very open to the training and piloting the program. And so we've been part of that. So again, we were already doing those things, but I'm glad that everybody else has kind of jumped on the wagon on how important it is for students to be identified and learned to read. as far as, and that's part of our reading program, and I think that's part of why we did well for our K2 literacy, is because we start very early with that and, piloted the program. So we're excited. We have, one of our staff has written the program for, dyslexia for students with special needs, and there's only two, I think, in the state, and one of them is at par, so that we can go ahead and have that curriculum, that with STEM, so that they have access to STEM education also. So some of the legislation, I think, should have been it's a long time coming. I'm glad that it's here. So we're looking at the benefits of what we're seeing also. As far as, let me see, I want to make sure, and we're navigating them because some things just need to happen. So here we go.
Yeah. We talked about cell phones. There are a lot of other things happening mandate wise. I've always felt like as an educator that students are supported kind of like a three-legged stool. There's the school, and then there's the church, or like a spirit community or community, and there are the parents. And if you ask me what's changed over, 4 decades of teaching, it's that, the parents have been pulled out as absent in a lot of students' lives, and the church has been pulled out as absent in a lot of students' lives. So we find ourselves kind of hopping up and down on one leg every day. And, we've given a few examples, but I think that we would tell you in general that the mandates handed down over the last 5 to 10 years have been exponential. And they take a lot of our time and attention. And so my question is, what's our core job as educators, right? I mean, we have state assessments. We want to make sure that kids are critical thinkers. We want to make sure that they have good English language reading and writing skills. We want to make sure that they understand the history of our country. We want to know that they understand, the basics of mathematics and advanced mathematics. But so the question becomes, what gets squeezed when we're doing all of these other things, right? Those things get squeezed, and that's why we exist. That's why we exist. So, for example, we are also starting, Likewise, in January. And they've been great to work with, and I've talked to other schools, and it's been a positive experience for them. But as a Christian, I ask myself, church, where are you? Because you've got a captive audience, but where are you, church? Why are we doing your job? So that's my question. And when we talk about the social emotional well-being of our students, where does that start? At the home, right? We know that a lot of kids live in homes that they don't get that support. So again, who does that fall on? I sound like I complain a lot, but I just think it's the reality of it. So one example is driver's ed. We have the 3 days for a religious release for observances. Like I said, we try to really work around that already in our scheduling. But now students can be released to do the driving part of their driver's ed during the school day. It sounds like that's not a big deal because it's a total of 8 hours. And at the end of the day, it can't be a core subject area. And if it can help kids get their driver's license, that's a great thing. But here's the core of that issue. Years ago, how many of you took driver's ed in school? It was a semester class, right? And so we all had free access to driver's education, didn't we? And then what did the state do? They took away the subsidy to help support driver's education in schools, and schools could not afford it. So it went out the door. So now what happens? I have 4 boys. They've all taken driver's ed, and it was, I don't know, $550, $650 for them to take driver's ed. How many of our families don't have $550 or $650 for their kids to take driver's ed? How many of them can't get them to where they need to go to get the driving done? And so again, I don't mind releasing those kids, but we have so many kids that don't have their driver's licenses because they don't have the financial wherewithal to get their driver's license because legislators took that subsidy away. And how many of us as taxpayers, again, talking about the use of our taxes so we have a great world to live in, would say, I want you to use some of my tax dollars so kids can have their driver's license, so they can have jobs, so they can make a living and further themselves in the world. So again, 8 hours, not a big deal, but it is a big deal because of what the history what has led to that. So those are the kinds of things that when we talk about mandates, I ask myself, you're mandating something that is not a part of our core responsibility as educators. And you're asking us then to step in for parents and or the church. The Parents' Bill of Rights, kind of a big deal that was made. It hasn't been a big deal for us. Because if we were changing services for a student, we were already having that discussion with the parents. We would never do that without the parents. Parents have always had the right to come and review the curriculum. They've always had that right. So I often say legislators are kind of creating a solution in search of a problem. But I'm just talking about Licking Heights. And then when it comes to our transgender kids, we have transgender kids. We have a handful of transgender kids. And a lot of times if I'm free in the morning, I stand outside the door and I just open it as kids are coming in off the bus and I say, good morning, good morning. And my boys are like, well, what do they say back? I say, sometimes they say good morning back, and I consider that a win. But I see every precious child of God walking into that building, and I don't care shape, size, background, intent, whatever. That's a child of God, and our job is to accept 100% of them and teach them and love on them. So I say that because those transgender kids, we have a relationship with their parents. We have discussion with their parents. So, we're partnering together. There are no surprises. And so, yes, we had to, have discussion with the restroom use and how we were going to deal with that. It went smoothly, no big issue at all. So again, I can say for some of those maybe mandates that are coming down that got a lot of, press and maybe a lot of people speaking on both sides of it. At the end of the day, it wasn't a big deal for us.
All right, thank you all for your comments. Again, really appreciate your insight and all that information. Looking at the clock, I can tell you, we're not gonna get through all these prepared questions, and I do wanna make sure
educators on my
you.
bad.
It's no trouble at all. So, really quick, and if all of you have input, you're welcome to, if this is kind of something that you're all experiencing. But I did want to ask, there have been some changes with, in terms of the State Board of Education, as well as the former Ohio Department of Education, which is now the Department of Education and Workforce. And if you're not familiar, in July, the State Board of Education went from 19 members and was reduced to 5. So has that had any real impact? I'm not really sure, not being, an educator or as familiar with maybe that relationship between local districts and the state board. Has that changed anything within your districts?
I can't say it's changed anything in our district. They're as unresponsive now as they were when they were in Iowa Department of Education. But I can say this, that change removed 11 elected seats on the State Board of Education that stripped Ohio citizens of their right to elect representatives who would reflect the values of their communities that they represented. So I just think it was not a good idea. Again, I'm going back to my time at BASA. I always frustrated me because the Department of Education building is literally a block away from the legislature, from the State House. And like legislators would introduce bills and it's like, did you even talk to ODE? And the answer was no. It's like they wouldn't talk to each other. They didn't have regard for each other, to be honest. And so when it became the Department of Education and Workforce and was part of the governor's cabinet, I thought, well, maybe that will improve the communication. I don't think it has. I don't think it has.
I think what he said is very important. When people's opinions are reduced to only 5 people from 19, that means that somebody is not being heard. And it's really important, and the reason we do these panels with the community is people need to be heard, and everybody's voice is important. So why it went from 19 to 5, I don't know. But it sounds to me like maybe there is a voice that somebody wants heard louder than other voices. So I can't say specifically it's done anything with my district at this time because all this is relatively new. But it does concern me that we're not hearing and reflecting on everybody's voice.
Yeah, completely agree. I can't see it locally where it's affected us, but, limiting voices is obviously concerning. Also looking at the landscape of education and just the ever expanding responsibilities that fall on the districts and the schools. I think that, you know, probably very similar at the state level, there's got to be a lot of that. And when you have 5 versus, 19, I think that some things can definitely go to the wayside and whatnot. So, definitely concerning on our end, but we haven't really seen it at the local level.
The more we keep politics out of education, the better.
Amen.
Yeah.
Next question.
All right, thank you. Seems like we have a consensus here. So maybe on a much lighter note, maybe not quite as difficult of a question. How would you advise someone, any of us in this room or anybody that we work with or engage with, how would you advise us on ways that we can support or engage with our local district? How can we be advocates for the district and for your students and staff and for you?
So I would say the two big things would be to get involved and to stay informed. I think one of the largest challenges I have found, Mr. Everybody, when talking to community members, that they don't know necessarily what's going on, or they're misinformed on information, whether it's, funding or growth, or again, all these changes that are going on. So, attending events, volunteering, you can learn a lot from a night in the concession stand on a Friday night football game. Just making sure it's hard for schools, because I think someone said it earlier, it's hard to communicate with those that don't always have students in school right now. So if you're not on social media, a little bit in the local newspapers, sometimes you get those, mailings. We do 2 mailings to all our registered voters twice a year, but it's hard to reach everybody. So we need you guys too to help us in, trying to stay informed and getting information the best way possible, so then you can know what's going on in your school system and your community, and know the challenges we're facing, and not just the challenges, but all the good stuff as well.
If it was 6 months ago, I'd say run for the school board. A thankless job. But I think those kind of things. I think the other piece is, and it doesn't matter if it's 2,200 students or a few hundred students or 6,000-7,000 students. I can tell you, when I have a question, I don't call ODE. I call one of my peers.
Yeah.
Because they're sitting in the seat, they're far smarter than I am, and let's figure this out. I say the same thing to our taxpayers and our parents. If you have a question, pick up the phone and call me. Like, I'll meet with anybody, anytime. Please don't believe everything that you see on Facebook. Like, we had an issue, I guess. I mean, if we're fighting over air horns at football games, and that's the issue at Licking Valley, then you know what? Then things are pretty good. And that's what I said at the board meeting. Like, if this is what we're arguing about, like, count your lucky stars, because it didn't always happen like that. But ask the question. We are local schools, even if it's a city school, we are local. And I don't know anybody in Licking County that you can't pick up the phone and make a phone call and schedule a time, or ask the question, or send an email that these folks don't get back with you about. And I think that takes care of 98% of it. It honestly does. And we may fall short in some areas. So I think that's a piece of it. And then, when you hear your neighbors say this or that, just echo that message, honestly. Pick up the phone and call. I think that's a huge part, and just be a part of it. It is, schools are still the centerpiece of communities, and we can never lose track of that. And so what we do and what happens there matters. And we can't take that lightly, but open lines of communication, I think, is a huge piece of it.
Well said.
Thank you.
Like everybody else said, be involved, be informed, get involved. We need good school board members, anyone that has an interest. We need people to run for school board. It is a thankless job. But we need people that don't have political agendas, that don't have personal agendas. We need good people that want to see our students and our communities grow. So I think we need to continue to get good people to run for school board. And please, don't rely on the pajama pant people on Facebook for your information. And that's for you, Casey. Casey, like you can use that. But God forbid, we are all in this business for a reason. We love our communities, we love our kids, we love our staff. We're not doing anything on purpose to hurt anybody or to keep information. We do make mistakes. We do screw up from time to time, but you know, we want to inform you. And when we mess up, we'll let you know. But you know, my door's always open to people, but you can't get ahead of the social media, you know, just with school safety. We've had a couple swatting incidents, which Scott knows very well of this year. We've had some safety concerns, and you can't get ahead of the social media. And if you don't send a message out to your parents within 60 seconds, they think you're hiding everything. And, you know, you need time to work the problem. You know, you can't communicate right away because you're working through the problem. So just trying to work and navigate through that, because if you don't notify right away, then you're holding something back. And just, you know, just trust that we're in this for the right reasons, and, you know, we're all in this together.
Yeah, hard to follow up a lot of that. You know, I echo the sentiment that has been kind of slid down the table and probably gonna continue down this way. You know, get involved and, definitely, you know that people up here are student centered. You know, that's the focal point is the success of the kids. And, you know, Beth Hill, who was the principal at North Catholic for 26 years and, you know, gave her life to this place. And, I'm so thankful, you know, we'll go out probably monthly for, you know, lunch and, you know, just to talk, because she has such a wealth of knowledge that I do not have. And one of the things that has always resonated with me is at the end, when, you know, you're in a tough situation, what is best for the student? And that's the biggest thing to be able to keep that out there. And, you know, that's the big thing that, always keeps me coming back in some of those tough situations where, you know, we're looking out for the best of our kids, as all of us are up here. And, we, you know, that trust factor, you know, hiding behind that Facebook stuff that we were just talking about, know that we're looking out for the best interest of the kids.
A good way to support your local schools is volunteer. I have a garden, so I'm sending out this message. It's a huge garden. And we need as many volunteers, and what you'll get out of it, if you don't know a lot about gardening, there's some great fruit and vegetables that we are growing, that we'll trying to grow, because we have some grow towers in the school and then a huge garden outside that we're trying to really get together. But if you have a particular hobby you'd like to share, stamp collecting, whatever it is, and you know, coin collecting, come into the school and share it with the students, because they may have never heard of that. So, and we always try to make time to have, you know, community, come to your community school. So please come in and share what your knowledge is. You don't have to do it more than one time. It's not something you sign up for all the time, but please let us know. I have my marketing person right here, Crystal Stamper, and you can give her your information. She'll take care of that. But we love anything that you have to share with these young people, because it's not like it used to be with school that are in TV and social media, where you had a wide range. Like when I was younger, we had like 3 TV stations. I know that dates me, but anyway, now they are only focused in on the thing that they like. So there's so many other things in the world that they have not been exposed to. And that exposure is really, you know, something that they need. So please come into the school, say, I just want to share this with them one day, quilting. We've had people come in and do crafts and projects with the students, and the kids are just delighted. And like I said, you only may have to do it one time, but at least you're inspiring a young person's mind and heart. So we're here for you, so we can always work together, and we welcome you to come in.
I think there's such a thing as political ignorance. And I think it will be the ruination of our country if we don't pay attention to what's happening. So thank you for being here this morning, because it means that you have an interest in understanding how things happening outside our schools are impacting our schools. I'm a strong believer that public education is the foundation of a strong democracy. And that's not a knock on Tom, because I feel like private schools, parochial schools, we're all a part, homeschools, schooling, it's all a part of the flavor of education in the state of Ohio. And it works so well collectively, I believe. And community schools are part of our public school programming in Ohio. So just something to think about. If you go to the Ohio Legislature website, you can create an account. And so when you create the account, then you can see a lot of things that are connected to the legislature. And what you can do is you can do a bill search. So you can, put in House Bill 15, and then it will show you who sponsored it. Have there been any hearings? Has it been before committee yet? It will show you the full text of that bill or any other bill. You don't want to read that. I mean, it's long, it's cumbersome, it's technical, you can't, no one can, I can't, and it's difficult to understand, you spend out, but there's always like a summary of that's what you want to look at. And that will help you understand what that bill is. So that's a good way to kind of connect to the legislature and be involved with it that way. But just understanding that, and you do, that strong public schools mean strong communities, and strong communities mean a strong Ohio. And that's why it's important that we have the full attention and support of our legislators, because it really is public schools that drive our communities and our state.
Right, thank you. Some really great advice for all of us, and I think, just by being here this morning, you're showing support and interest in what's happening in our school systems, and so the word I hear is volunteer, get involved, and be informed. So that's things that we can all do right now to support our educators. So I think we will ask one last question from our prepared list. So while I'm doing that, Ashley, would you mind being my Vanna? And if you have questions that you have written, feel free to hold those up. We'll do our best to address as many of those as we can. But in the meantime, panelists, I'm going to skip down here and ask, what's the future look like for your district? What are you planning for? What's on the horizon right now that you're excited to celebrate?
So at Lakeland Heights, we're focused very much on developing our literacy framework K-12. And that's really is kind of our pathway, our journey, our plan as we continue building literacy in our students. It's important that students know how to read at grade level by third grade, because the research shows if they're not reading at grade level by third grade, there's just a whole lot of negative things that happen. And the other piece is just building our student experience, whether that's in the classroom and creating engaging classroom experiences for them or outside the classroom. I'm really excited that we just advertised for a bowling coach. We're going to start bowling at Lakeland Heights. I love that. That's an OHSAA sanctioned sport. They have a state tournament. It's absolutely awesome. They do not have a bear frame, but they do allow kids to take part in bowling. And I think that's a really cool thing. And I will just tell you, one of the things that makes me most proud at Lakeland Heights, I think they set the bar for excellence, is our marching band. 148 kids involved, and a lot of our multicultural kids. I just have to tell you that it was about a month ago, it was the Saturday after Labor Day weekend, we had our band festival, and like Kasey's kids were there, and Dave's kids were there, and it was just a whole night of watching great kids do great things. And in the midst of all these, frustrations that we share with you, and the issues and the problems that we address every day, are great kids. We have amazing kids in Licking County, and they're doing amazing things. So just take the time to enjoy that. Go to the school musical, go to the band concert, don't go to our football game. Those aren't going real well right now. No, you can still come to the football games. Still great boys out there. They're working hard. We're gonna beat Watkins this year. That's all I have to say. Maybe not.
What's on the horizon for us is just a lot of expansion. Our STEM program is going great and it's growing and, like I've said, we have a lot of partners in giving students that experience with science, technology, engineering and math so that they have a future, in STEM and to know that that's where we're going because everything now is digital or, and still at the same time understand that there's all types of occupations out there. Not everything is geared to a four-year college. There's vocational, there's all kinds of different things out there and letting them know of all the choices that they have and that they have a solid part in that future and painting that picture for them.
Right now, a key focus at North Catholic is school growth. Looking at the landscape of Licking County and what's been shared in, many of these districts. We recently invested in a new, educational technology platform to increase efficiencies in how we manage, finances, student information, our application enrollment process and much, much more. Excuse me. And this was an important step towards scaling our operation in anticipation of a larger student population. We're developing a strategic plan that'll guide us into the future. A lot of focus on STEM growth, as well as updating outdated facilities. Our building is at 67 years at this point, and many of those things are original in there, like an original gym floor and many of these other things that we're trying to plan for and be good stewards in our building.
Yeah, Newark, just trying to continue to provide a variety of opportunities for our students. That's very important to us. We have a lot of kids that are involved in a lot of different things and we want to be able to provide that for all of our students. Like many of the initiatives I talked about early on during the program, I really think the alternative school is going to be a great help to our district, getting kids, the help that they need to be career ready, to work in a smaller environment away from the high school where it's not working for them, getting their diplomas and trying to find that career path for them. I think that's going to be make a world of difference for us. But, one thing I think everybody needs to know, I'm fairly new to Licking County. I've been here for 6 years. We have a lot of fabulous districts and a lot of great leaders in this county. So we're very blessed, to have wonderful districts, wonderful kids. And I think that's something that, leaving this room for you guys to go out and shout from the mountaintops, that we are very blessed in this county to have great school districts.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And the diversity of school districts,
Yeah.
Kevin describes, the multicultural, things at the western tip, what at the eastern tip, and it's very traditional. And, but at the end of the day, the one thing that's consistent is kids. So we will continue at Licking Valley to focus on those pathways for our kids. What's old is new again. I can remember growing up in Lancaster and then being at Newark High School for a number of years where we had classes that were OWE, occupational work experience. Honestly, like now we call them co-ops. We have developed a lot of co-ops for our kids that maybe aren't going to college, didn't go to CTech when given the opportunity to go to CTech. And so we partnered with GolfWorks. They actually created a special shift. we send 6 to 8 students there that are working there, getting experience when they're done at 12:30 because they're ahead of the game credit-wise. Licking County Engineering Office did the exact same thing. Houston Plumbing did the exact same thing. And I'm really proud of this one. Because it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. We just created a co-op within our district that we have a couple of high school students that work with our maintenance department. They couldn't get to work. And so we wanted to create that. And it's interesting. Part of that is a grow your own a little bit, that maybe 1 or 2 of them will end up sticking around and working summer shift but some of them won't. And that's okay. They're getting those real world experiences because not everybody's going to go to college. And we want to continue to keep a robust program there in college prep and all the CCP offerings, but also all those different pathways so that they're ready to go into the military. They're ready, they're job ready. We have a fair amount of students that go to CTech. We have the same problem there that we have a little bit with our CCP, that they get there, they like it, but they miss school. They miss their home school, which is really good. We want them to get those skills. So we'll probably look at hosting some of those satellite programs. In the future, we do that at the middle school with the pre-engineering career connections course already. So continuing to think outside of the box and focus on students, but also prepare for growth because it is inevitable, especially at a place like us. Thanks.
And similar to people at the table, we are focusing on the career tech. Our relationship with C-Tech, we are bringing in, continue each year to add on programs in our high school. So we also send a lot of kids to C-Tech and they do love it and thrive there. But we also have programs in-house for those that choose not to leave. And so that's a continued area of growth because again, the workforce and the need for that, not just the college readiness, is prevalent in where we're at today. A focus on the early literacy, hands-on opportunities. That's what we're finding kids need today, hands-on opportunities. Obviously, our growth, addition of classroom spaces is at the forefront of our decisions. And I was reflecting in my mind that we are trying to add up how many years in a row Watkins has beat Heights in our rivalry. It's actually been so long, I can't even recall since we did us. I've been down there. But
Gauntlet has been thrown.
I will say, I am confident we're gonna beat them this year, although we are also struggling in our football season, so it could be a thing. But the good thing about that game and what comes from that is next week is that our friendly rivalries, and Kevin and I truly work together in this. We have a canned food drive. I was trying to remember, Kevin, how many canned
27,000 cans last year.
Last year.
Two schools.
So that right there, we have a blood drive, we have a spaghetti dinner on, Monday, Monday at the Nutcracker, where, both of our school communities come, and it's a friendly rivalry again, who gets more people there, but the money goes towards scholarships presented to our students in the Rotary, so all of these things.
We have a United Way competition.
Yeah,
going.
United Way, so there's so many of them. United Way, we did win that last year.
Yes, you did.
And the football game.
I think you might, yeah, you guys should try to edge each other out on the.
So, anyways, just so many, amazing things going on in everybody's schools and districts and so much good stuff to come to.
Awesome. Well, thank you. There's so much to look forward to in the future of your districts and appreciate all those updates. So we have some questions. This first one, we'll just kind of start off with this. Dr. Miller, they want to know when you're going to run for Ohio governor.
I don't really have an answer to that. I am, thank you, that's a nice compliment.
So here, we had a similar question in line with this about the general public, but I like this focus, and I'm going to guess where this came from, my friends back there in the back of the room. How can community organizations like public libraries, or others, I'm sure, better support schools in particular in efforts to maintain an educational focus and reinforce the creation of a healthy, supportive, and positive school culture? So maybe rather than in a personal sense, for instance, what can we do in a professional sense? Is there anything that we can do programmatically?
Could you restate that question?
Yes. So how can community organizations like public libraries better support schools in their effort to maintain an educational focus, and a healthy and supportive, culture?
I think with the library question, we have the mobile library that comes and they do a great job and they're always willing to do more. So to utilize the public library is something that as a child, I lived at the library. And to get our kids to go and understand how much is available to them. Now, I know we're all into online stuff, but there's nothing better than to just look at all the books. And I really think that experience with children we need to keep. Because the library here in Licking County does a wonderful job with our school. And we're going to continue to even try to see more what we can do to develop a strong partnership. Because the joy on those kids' face when they get those books from the bookmobile, there's nothing like it when they're skipping home with their books and cannot wait just to look through the pictures. So digital is great, an iPad is great or whatever, that tablet, but the real joy of just seeing a real book in hand, there's nothing like it. And I don't think it can be duplicated.
I'm a history major myself, and you know, that definitely goes hand in hand with the library and resources and whatnot. We, you know, a lot of our focus with our faculty has been how can we reach out and utilize these types of resources. And Miss Meg O'Reilly, who is our world history teacher, excuse me, U.S. history, actually developed a standalone class called Voices of the Past, and it focuses on kind of our Licking County heritage and whatnot within our that class. And she's utilized so many different resources. We're constantly going to the archives and, you know, having access to the advocate and looking through those. And you know, one of the recent discoveries was Philip Sens. He was killed in Vietnam, and he was actually the very first person killed in Licking County in the Vietnam War. And he was an alumnus of Newark Catholic High School. And so our kids went through a lot of the library archives, the advocate archives, and they were able to trudge up, you know, some background on Mr. Sens. And there was an article that was in there that there was a tribute that was done at the school, and it said that his legacy would live on forever, and it didn't. And it was great that the Voices of the Past was able to resurrect that and bring that in, and that speaks to a lot of these local access points that we were able to get into. And she continues to look into those things, you know, very frequently, and how we can utilize our public libraries and whatnot. So very thankful for those, and thankful for her and developing that curriculum to be able to make that happen.
One thing that I think Newark does extremely well is supports our school districts and all the community organizations. I mean, I could sit up here, we could all sit up here for hours and just talk about how thankful we are. If we need something, we get it from someone. I mean, there are just so many community organizations that we have partnerships with. And I'm not just talking financially, just the support coming into the buildings, working with our students, whether it's big brothers, big sisters, things of that nature, just giving time. That's one thing that's not common in a lot of places. You know, I've been in other counties and other districts, and I would say by far, you know, I've seen it. You work so well here in Licking County.
I think what resonates with me is access. Is if you can come to us, not to be lazy on our part, that plays a huge role. You know, I went to the library a lot growing up because my mom took me. Right? A lot of our kids, I mentioned going to the wilds. I'm a huge believer in student travel. We take trips. It's something that we started a couple of years ago. We take an international trip every summer. Give those opportunities to our kids, because without traveling, you don't, I mean, those are lifelong experiences. Yes, I do chaperone selfishly. But again, those are real life experiences. We have kids that can't get to the library 7 or 8 miles west of Licking Valley. Believe it or not, that's reality. And so we go to the wilds, and I had kids that had been to the zoo 10 times. And I had another young man that said, I've never seen an animal in my life. I mean, and so I think we forget about that because most of us in here have access. And so anything, you know, you pick up the phone, let's schedule a meeting and figure out how we can partner together and get those resources to our kids where they live. We learned that in COVID. We have thriving Panther pantries that provide food and hygiene products. We've done it really, really well. But we had a lot of families that couldn't come to the school at that time. So we just developed a support network where we delivered things. And we've continued that throughout the summers. And I think we forget about access, even in some areas that there's a fair amount of affluency. So
You can probably, so I'm not repetitive in time. You can go on to the next question.
Well, I think we're gonna end there because we are about 3 minutes. So if you have any thoughts, you're welcome to share. Otherwise, okay. All right, well, yeah, we are at time, so unfortunately, we're not gonna get through all our questions. Let's give a big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. It's, I think it just speaks so much to, as someone said earlier, there's no district that's not going to pick up someone's phone call, that's not gonna be available. And I think this just really speaks to that. So we certainly appreciate your willingness and your collaboration this morning. And thanks to all of you for coming. We appreciate everything that you add to these conversations as well. With that said, just a reminder again, don't miss our next forum, which will be on Wednesday, November 12th, as we talk about youth and substance use. You can register for that on our website, unitedwalesc.org. And we will see you next month. Have a good afternoon.
Right.